We're going to go ahead and begin the legends of the breed, Brahmin breed. I want to thank Lee Pritchard for working with me on this project. It's been a fun project. So I'm going to hand it over to Lee Pritchard, who's going to MC the rest of this thing.
Thank you, Reggie. And it is going to be a fun afternoon, informative afternoon, as we learn and hear and even get your participation from these legends. You know, if you did a Google search on the word legend, it would come up an extremely famous person or notorious, Johnny? Expecting, or really especially in a particular field, and that field would be Brahmin cattle. We've got a panel of legends here. I look over the crowd and I see other legends that's sitting in the crowd. And we've got legends that's gone before us that's looking down from heaven today. So we've got a lot of Brahmin legends that's paved a lot of ways for us as we go through it. You know, I've got Sloan, a favorite slogan, and it goes, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And that's how these legends come about, because it wasn't just overnight that they started. But at this time, I'd like to bring to you the legends here today, legends of the Brahmin breed, starting on your right to my left, Mr. Sloan Williams, V8 Ranch, Hungerford, Texas. And I think I also want to note their spouse, you know, their partner, and it was part of their being a legend, and that would be Molly Ferguson Williams, and wish her the best as we go forward here. Shirley Watts, Tic Tac Toe Ranch, Frost, Texas. Shirley and her husband Max made a well of a team, and certainly mentors of I and a lot of other people, you know, through the years. Clyde Goudeau, Cajun Cattle Service, Mississippi. Clyde, you know, I have very, very fond memories of Betty as we go through in the team that y'all made back in those days of Cajun Cattle Service. SR Steamer Swanner Brahmins, Waco, Texas. Marcia is looking down on us, and she just, the last day or two, had a heavenly birthday for Marcia. Johnny Jefcoat, Double J, Scott, Louisiana. Johnny and I have something in common. We both outpunted our coverage, married over her head, with his wife being Hope Jefcoat. I think she's here today, or has been. Not here. She's here, but not here. And then as she comes in, we've got Emily Dial 3X Ranch. So we can really have some fun with Emily, and we'll fill in for Emily since she's not here. And through those years, you know, her partner at 3X Ranch was Mr. Joe Dial as we go through. But again, let's give Emily a big hand. You know, we're going to have a fun, fast-paced format today as we go through. And we're going to start out with just some general comments. We're going to pass the mic from one end to the other. Just give from 2 to 3 minute general comments. And then we've got 4 questions, 3 to 4 questions that I think you'll find very interesting, that they can make comments on, each from one to the other. And then Reggie has got some note cards, and we're going to pass these note cards out. And if you have a question that you would like to address the legends with, you fill that note card out. Hold up your hand, anybody, you know, during the time that'd like to have a note card, and by foremost do so. Get you a note card. So Johnny, we'll start it with you, just some general comments.
Oh, Sloan was supposed to be. Well, I'm real happy to be here with this group of people, some people I admire a lot. And I've worked with these people for, I don't know, 50 years, so I think I know all these people pretty well. But just a general comment, I think I walked through this barn out there today. The Brahman cattle have never been put together as well as these cattle are put together today. I mean, there's some fantastic cattle in that barn. There's some cattle with the more famous so-called ranches, and there's some great cattle with some regular little small breeders. And I think the people have done a fantastic job of breeding these cattle. So I want to give them credit for that. The thing that bothers me most about the Brahman cattle today is we're kind of living in the 50s, relying on the show ring. I mean, the world is going to higher quality meat. We're going to have to measure these cattle. We're going to have to know what kind of meat they produce. Nobody cares if you eat a piece of meat out of a son of a champion in Houston. If it's tough, you get a bad experience. So I think the breed that really needs to work on this, we can't keep just batting the ball down or kicking the can down the road. And I tell you what, with this, I went the other day hoping I went to the Burger King. We split an Impossible Burger, which is a non-meat hamburger, and it was good. And I didn't want to say that, but it was good. I went back 2 days later by myself and ate the whole one, and it was still good. So anytime you think these scientists are not working to produce a product that tastes like meat, you better wake up, because the margarine, I don't hear a lot of people eating butter anymore. They eat margarine. It's the same thing. So I'll just leave y'all with those comments. I just think breeders have done a great job. I just think we need to work on the quality of our product, because in the end, all of us sell a piece of meat. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Steamer Swanner. We're a small family Brahman breeder at Waco. We're a complete family operation, and we're part of this family. As I look out here, this is supposed to be for new breeders. There ain't no new people here. Everybody here is part of our old family, and proud that y'all came and come to talk with us and visit with us. Hopefully, we'll get some feedback and help each other. We were in the grape business. We got in the business in '58. We were in the dairy business. We used the Brahman bulls to freshen our dairy cattle. These Holstein calves were bringing $5. The dairy Brahman cross was bringing 20. So that's the reason we got in. Brahmans made us business, I guess, in the 50s in the dairy, and they're still making us money. And we're a believer. And I think my comment to do on this is, if you're going to become a Brahman breeder, and there's a lot of people that try to be breeders, but it don't happen overnight. And you have to have a commitment of the family to make it work, because it's a big sacrifice. But in my opinion, if you're going to become a Brahman breeder, the first thing you got to do is know your market. As Johnny said, if it's a show heifers, know it's going to be show cattle. If you're producing for the commercial end, if you can sell $1,500 bulls and make it, good, more power to you. If you're selling for the international market, know those international people and what they want, in my opinion. But that's, I guess, where I got to stay, but we'll have questions after a while. Again, as some of you know, Pasquale's here, my youngest son, my oldest son, Al, is here. The daughters haven't got here yet, but we're a family, and we're a big believer in the Brahman family, and that's what we are here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Rodriguez called me, and I didn't know if I'd make it or not because I had an operation and I was up 3 months, couldn't get out and do nothing. I wasn't going to come today, but I had a very good friend that actually invited to bring me over here to Rhymes, Mr. Rhymes, and actually it's a pleasure and to see each and every one. Most of them I know, but a lot of them are not here when I come. 70 years ago, right here in Rosenberg, I worked for J.D. Hudgens. I come over here at 14 years old. But anyway, I love Brahman cattle. I was raised with Brahman cattle with L.C. Dominic right there in Big Cave. And like I said, I put my heart into everything I've done. I fitted, I hauled the broke, I bred cattle. I worked for some of the biggest breeders from Florida to South Texas with J.D. Hudgens, all the way. I fitted cattle from all the way out to Oregon, sold cattle. But I have had a good life. I lost my wife, Betty, was married 49 years. She had cancer here at MD Anderson. Thought we'd make it, but she did. And I wish she was here today to see she loved the people around. She was said by one fella, and I ain't gonna name his name because people always, that she was a queen when it come to Houston. The doors was open. She was there to greet the people at that back door. I don't know if a lot of y'all remember that or not, but I thank y'all for inviting me. I say I work for many breeders. I even work for Johnny Jefcoat. I work for J.D. Hudgens. I work for A. Duda's son, John Keaton from Kentucky. But I put my heart into what I was doing and loved the grade. I learned most of it at Duda's. I bred 1,300 head of Brahman cattle. But I love Brahman cattle, and they did good for me. And like I said, I'm glad to be here today, and thank y'all for inviting me here. I might not be very spokeable like a doctor or a professor or nothing like that, but I got common sense, and I love to breed Brahman cattle, and it's did a good job. And I'm breeding F1s now because you don't have to show them. You can bring them to the sales and sell them, and don't have to put all that money in them. But thank you again. And another thing I want to say, I visit, when I was in the pit business, Cajun Cattle Service, I visited just about every breeder. I fitted cattle. I took time to go around, and if they asked me something about, you need a bull here, or you need something, I told them, just like I didn't, there's no humbug with me. And like I said, I'm here today because, like I said, and I turned that 84 mark Sunday. So anyway, thank y'all for inviting me, because this is an honor to me today, and thank y'all very much.
To give a new breeder some advice on selecting your Brahmin cattle, I first would suggest that you go to a reputable breeder and let them help you in selecting. Let them tell you the points that you need to look at and examine in an animal that you're getting, whether it's to show or just to produce. I would also say, if you don't want to go the purebred line, then go the crossbreed with the Brahmin. And I prefer the Hereford. Some people have other preference, but that's how Max and I started out, was with Hereford cattle and a Brahmin bull. And we definitely loved the F1 cattle, which later on daughters became interested in showing, and little daughter, they were showing Herefords at the time. Little daughter come in and said, "Mama, how come the horns on those heifers are much longer than mine?" So we decided right then was time to let them go into the Brahmin breed. They seem to like the Brahmin the best. So that's how we got started. But again, as far as advice to a new breeder, just look around, talk with different, your more, like I said, reputable breeders. Let them help you. That would be the best advice that I could give you on it. But again, if you don't really want to go the show road or the purebred, then go your F1s, which today are very hot on the market and can sell. They will sell. So I believe that's all the advice that I have. Thank you.
I'm Sloan Williams. We live in Hungerford, Texas. We own the V8 ranch, and we think we've got some good cattle, and we've got some that are not so good. I think we've all got those kind. You know, growing up, I was grew up in a little town by College Station, and my granddaddy had a lot of Brahmin cattle, but not registered, and a lot of crossbred cattle. We farmed a lot of cotton, and it didn't take me very long to learn I'd rather drive a cow than walk behind a plow. And so I don't know anything about farming. But I'd say to a young breeder, if you're getting in, you need to go and there's smaller ranches, you just got good cattle as the big ones do. And they classify us as a big one. They don't know how much money I owe. But we've enjoyed the people that we've met all over the country. We've had cattle in every country where they have Brahmin cattle. And I've been there and judged them, and it's the people we've met that is the best thing in the Brahmin business that I've ever done. But I think that a person's word, if you tell somebody something, that if you go try to do it, and that's what we've tried to do. And you know, Max Watts was one of my best friends. And I said, Max, when somebody does something to you, what do? He said, eat them up with kindness. But anyway, it's been a long road, but it's been a good road. We've been able to buy some. We bought the V8 cattle. We went to sugar dispersal, and I talked to my banker, and he told me to let me have $100,000, but that was it. And it lasted 2 days. The cattle that we wanted to buy were they hadn't even come up yet. I had to call home and get some money from some individual to buy what we wanted to buy. And those V8 cattle have really done a good job for us. And we bought some. We bought some cattle from different ranches, and we had red cattle, and we still like the red cattle. I remember the first time we showed in a red Brahmin, I won 4th place, and you thought I'd won the greatest thing in the world. And like Woody Hayes said, winning not everything, it's the only thing. But I've enjoyed it, and I have a lot of friends in this business, and if it's any way I can ever help you, let me know. Thank you very much.
We're going to share a lot of different stories with these legends, but one just kind of came to mind. Sloan and I flew to San Salvador, El Salvador one time, and I met him at Houston Intercontinental, and this, Catherine, this is hard to believe, but you know, in an airport back then, they had insurance machines. And he was just poking money into this flight insurance machine. Now, this wasn't insurance for your ticket being, you know, non-refundable. This was life insurance. Because we had gotten word that the Sandinistas had 4 embassies hostage in San Salvador. But we were going to go anyway. So we fly to San Salvador, and after Sloan had gotten his life insurance policies there in his pocket, and you know how he used to always keep in his pocket, he says, now, if something happens to me, tell Molly that we moved those cattle from Palacios yesterday. He says, me and you are the only ones, and Butch, I remember Butch would say that we moved those cattle from Palacios. I said, okay, I'll tell her something happens to you. We get to El Salvador, nobody at the show. The next morning, we're sitting there at breakfast, and we hear boom, 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 boom. Sloan looks at me, he said, that's not fireworks. I said, no, it's not. Edward Kennedy had cut off foreign aid to Central America, so they started burning the buses and they closed the airport down. Greg Gossett, we were down there with Frank Arts. He'd gone down there to judge a carcass contest. Now, like Sloan and I mean, Frank came out all right because he got on the scotch and just went to his room. But anyway, Sloan, you remember, we rode around with a guy named Enrique Alvarez. Well, we spent the night there the night before, and we get back, and I called Sloan. I said, Enrique has been assassinated in his car. They blew his car up, shot him, and then blew his car up. We'd spent 2 days riding around with him. Sloan says, I knew it, I knew it. Anyway, we're going to have some fun stories, but Emily's not here right now, so if she does walk in, I just want to represent Emily right quick. And just make a note, you know, Emily Dial was the first lady to be named to the ABBA, Bubba, to the ABBA judges list. The first lady. Her husband at that time, since she's not here, Joe Dial, was the first ABBA approved judge to judge Shreveport one time and give a first place bull a second place award. All right, you'd had to have been there anyway. Okay, we're going to go through and pass the mic quickly, and before we get into some of those fun stories, and again, we covered some of that. Here's the first one. Just give a helpful hint to a new Brahmin breeder or someone coming in the breed. Helpful hint.
I don't think the way I started, it wouldn't be very good because Hope and I were raised in a subdivision. We didn't know what a cow was, and I decided I wanted to buy a cow. I went to Crowley to the sale barn, bought a little Brahma Hereford cross, paid $52.50 for it, and brought it home in the trunk of my '66 Ford Fairlane 500. So I ended up buying several of those kind of little heifers, and Hope's uncle said, well, you're going to have to buy a bull. So he brought me to Chester Hyde's place in Crowley who had Hereford cattle. So I went in the pen and had about 10 little bulls, and I was paying $50 for my cattle, and these bulls are $300. I got home and I told Hope, I said, man, we're getting in the purebred business. You can make a lot of money. So that's how we got started. And the way we got started with the Brahmins, I went to A.J. Marceau's, and Mr. Obrey and Duffy were there. And we told them we were going to buy some heifers. Well, I'm looking at these Brahmin heifers, and I don't know one from the other one. Can't tell any difference in them. And finally, Duffy says, how much money do you have? I said, I got $900. He said, you can have those 4 right there. So that's how I bought my first 4. Then I had my same little Ford. I had a 2-wheel trailer. So we hooked it on the bumper, the heifers ran in, and my Ford went to the bottom. They ran to the back and picked up my Ford. So Mr. Marceau could see how they do it. So he said, if you'll bring my trailer back, I'll let you borrow that tandem trailer over there. So I said, oh yeah. And I said, I'll leave my trailer as collateral. I mean, that's not collateral. But anyway, that's how we got them home. And that's how we started. And I think you can start any way you want. You know, you can be a guy that's got a lot of money. You can invest quite a bit of money, or you can be just a poor old boy trying to do something. But no matter how you start, I guarantee you one thing, you gotta work. Now there's no easy way to be in the cattle business. You gotta work to be in the cattle business, and you gotta work to be successful. And the people you see around here that are successful, they're people that put a lot of time and energy into their profession. So that's the best advice I can give anybody.
I'm going to kind of tell you how we started and the advice. The first thing we did was Ms. Margaret Watkins that was Ms. Brahman. We called Ms. Watkins and asked her advice about some things. Then Marcia and I went and looked at a herd in Louisiana. We visited with Mr. Parks of V8 Ranch at Houston. You get to visit with Sloan Williams now. Don't let him walk out without being in his ear. You get to talk to these people that did things. One of the greatest, and in my opinion, probably the best red Brahman breeder that ever lived is Emily Dow. She hadn't got here yet. And to tell you the truth, I don't really expect she'll show up, but anyway. She's not much on being political, but if you get and visit with her, you pick these people, and like Clyde Goudeau, if you want to know what a bull's predictability are, you get him and take him outside and say, now Clyde, I'm thinking about this family or bloodline. What are you thinking? What will they cross with? It's right there in him. And all you got to do is pick these people. But we've never had an opportunity when we started to visit with these people. We just go up, like in the audience, I went and sat down with Mr. Parker, Mr. E8. Had the chance to visit with such a gentleman. Another great breeder in Louisiana we visited with, Dr. LeBlanc, one of the best breeders there was. One of the most knowledgeable people on Imperator bloodlines, Duffy Marceau. You can pick him up, call him any time of the night, and Duffy's dead now. But you could pick the phone up, talk to him anytime, the day or night, and get information from him. But you've got to take advantage of the people. My opinion is, decide what type of cattle you like. Breed your type of cattle. Don't care what the fads are. If they get bigger or if they get smaller or fatter or whatever, stay with your type of cattle because it will come back around. And when they do, you'll be there. But don't try to follow the rest of the people. But there's so many people that in marketing, Ms. Joyce, Johnny Joyce, the greatest guy in marketing here. When he started, in my opinion, a good bull was worth $2,500. When he got through, a good bull was worth $4,000, $40,000, $400,000. But take advantage of these people that are specialists in their area. Visit with them, and I can't believe you got some of the best in the world right here. And visit with them, be in their ear. They don't mind if you pull them over and talk to them. They're here. They're ready to share. But I would say we started embryo business about 40 years ago. We believe in trying to produce quality and not numbers. Now, one time for us, we ran 200 cows, Brahman cows. That was a lot for us, with just our family. And Marcia sat down with Sloan one day up there in the stands, and he knew we'd cut down because we sold some to his partner. And Marcia told me, said, Sloan said, how many cows y'all have making you money? And what she told you, 10 or 15? And you said, we're going home and talk that over with Molly. That may be the way at our house. It is the way with us. But now you can take those good cows, the good genetics, this man's bulls, the genetics that you want. You can take one straw and make 20 or 30 calves. And with your prize cow, the cow that's got the pretty brown eyes that you're never going to sell, you could use her and get as many calves as you want in embryo. But the embryo thing, you can move fast, take advantage of the modern and type of genetics that are selling. And I think the way to do, in my opinion, don't try to get big. Try to produce quality. That's what I think. Thank you very much.
I don't know if I can follow all this. It's so many things. I can go back and from when I was a boy, 14 years old, I was from the Hungerford in a little old shoebox. And I learned a lot from the old breeders like J.D. Hudgens, Sarkwell sitting over there. A lot of them old breeders in Florida. L.C. Dominic, Uncle Joe Seymour, actually was no educated. He couldn't hardly speak English. I couldn't hardly speak English when I come to Texas. But anyway, he was a man who could breed cattle.
You speak English now?
Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't speak much now. But anyway, I could sit here all day and go back to when I was a boy coming up, and the breeders I worked for and I fitted for, like Johnny Jefcoat, I fitted 30 head of cattle for him over there in my fit service, Dr. Woods. But anyway, talking about selling, breeding cattle, I love Brahman cattle. I love this. I sell on duties. I handle all the purebred cattle. I did all the breed. We had 35 herd bulls, Saltwell breed, Hudgens breed, Coons breed. And you learn a lot from the different cattle. I learned more is looking at different breeders, different kinds of cattle. And then I'd select the cows that go with those bulls. I look at the bull, look at the cows, we weigh them, we grade them from the time they was born till the time we weaned them until the time we sold them. But anyway, there's so many times I could sit here all day and tell you, but I'd have to go back when I was a boy coming up that I started off in Goudeau, Louisiana with Big King with L.C. Dominic, which he bought 80 Brahman heifers from Hudgens at $1,500 a piece. He bought the herd to keep it herd. He started with the best. But anyway, I could talk all day, but me, when I'm going to tell you about the fit. So I fit a cat for Johnny. I fit a cat for Hudgens. V8, I had some cattle for V8. I had cattle for, I think I had a bull from Saltwell. I had Norris cattle coming. All the breeders all over the United States. I even had cattle from California, pole cattle. And you learn a lot. But I learned one thing, being breeder, sorting cattle from all the old breeders, and over the period of time, and selling cattle and breeding cattle. I went to every little breeder. I didn't just go to the big breeders. And I picked cattle from Kentucky, Carolinas, Alabama, all the way across. And I'd go to the man's place and look at the cattle, and they'd ask me, where you can find a herd bull? Because I knew all the breeders. Where could you find a herd bull? I said, well, I'll come, we'll go. I know where to go. I ain't the fathers, I did the same thing. But you learn a lot from the little breeders all the way to the big breeders, and you learn from them old timers like Mr. Edgar Hudgens, Mr. Henry Clay Coates. Those people was back. Mr. Parker, I was talking about Mr. Parker. I bought a bull from Mr. Parker for $1,000 when I worked for Marone over there. I sold the first bull calf out of him for $5,000. Mr. Marone says he's no good. But you study the cattle, and you take the good things to breed your cattle and cost the one he don't have. You try to match them up and select. And you learn a lot from the little breeders to the big breeders. And I could sit here all day and tell you about it. It'd take a while to tell you all where I've been and what I did in my life. And I love Brahman cattle. I'm raised at crossbreeds now. That's where the money's at. There's no showing, no hard breaking. I used to break, at duties we broke 100 bulls and 100 heifers. But you learn a lot, but I learned a lot from the old breeders. We'd breed cattle, select cattle, and visiting people, if you're going to have cattle, and talk, and tell them the truth. Tell them, is something wrong with that cow? He's not correct. I'll tell you a little story. I went to Columbia. I got off the plane in Bogota. I went the next morning out to Balulapa. I don't know if Johnny knows what that is. And Pancho Solana was behind cattle and getting them back down there. Well, I judged the cattle from the time I got off the plane till that dog, and I saw it in the morning. Well, they had 3 or 4 bulls in there with one testicle. Well, I was quick to find anything that wasn't correct and sound, and he was carrying cattle down there. It was actually was not correct kind of cattle, not the kind of cattle you want. But I did over the years. I did, and I love what I did, and I love the people that I met over the history. That fellow back down there sitting with the black hat over there, the groom, Mr. Randall. I talked to him a lot of times, and you get to Alfredo, this man sitting right here in front of me. I love the people, and I'm looking at all of them around here. There's a lot of them not here today that actually I come up with. I was nothing but a boy, 14 years old, but I learned, and I left home at 14 and come to Texas, right down the road here. First pair of cowboy boots I had made here in Rosenberg. It's been 70 years since I've been right here, in this little town. So, but it's so many things I could tell you, and like I said, you have to promote your cattle, and And you got to tell the man honest. If there's something wrong with that bull, you tell him honest. You don't tell him, well, I looked at all the Chinese cattle. A lot of times people bought them. I said, now this bull, and he hit him at that. This bull will work on your cattle. And you look at the cattle. And like I said, I'm not good at speaking. I've been down for 3 months now with my legs and all in the operation. I'm not as thankful as other, but I'll tell you what, I've had a good life, and I'm glad to be here today with these fellows here sitting here from Johnny on down to the end of Sloan Williams. And I had a few things I could tell, even but Sloan told me one time, but I'm not going to say it, Sloan. and thank y'all again.
Shirley, I can't remember the question. Go ahead.
I can't either. No, I think we wanted about
Yeah,
a legendary breeder.
I tell you what, we answered a lot of the ones we already had. Share with us, you're not someone that was influential in your life and
Okay,
program. That's a great.
That's the question.
Yeah.
All right. A legendary breeder that helped us, Bob Massey. Bob was a great one. And good honest, his operation, if that cow didn't raise a calf, she went to market. So when we started, or I say we, the girls wanted, as I said before, Deborah said something about the Hereford horns, and so we went the Brahmin route. We went to Mr. Massey, and he at that time, just 2 of the girls were old enough to show, so we got 2 heifers at market price, and that was pretty cheap then. The next year, or maybe it was 2 years later, then they got 3 years. Max and I went to him and wanted to buy 4 or 5 head of Brahmin heifers. He said, no. He said, I'm going to take care of those girls. When they finish high school, he says, I might think about letting y'all have some of them. And that's what he did. We didn't get to get in until, I believe it was 75. The girls actually started in 69 or 70 or 71. I can't remember which. But anyway, we didn't get ours until 1975. And but they weren't quite at market price. It was still cheap compared to what we are today, or have been in the last 20 years. But Bob Massey was the most influential breeder for us, and a breeder that we certainly admired. And like I said, he run his cow herd. That cow didn't win a calf, she was gone. And that's one reason I think that in what we got from him, you never had problems with a calf nursing. They got up and they nursed. Every once in a while you might, have one that needed a little help. But I really think that him culling on his herd the way he did was what led to us not having to help so many calves when they were first born. Another legendary breeder would be Sloan and Jim. They helped us along. They helped us along. We bought some cows off of them that they were culling. Some of them maybe were a little long on their calving periods, or they were open. I'll tell this now. I don't know whether he ever knew or not, but one time we bought 5 head from him. 2 of them were bred.
Maybe they were too young.
Yeah, that was it. They were weren't far enough along to show that they were pregnant. But those are the people that have been so influential in us getting started in the Brahmin breed. We started with 3. By the time the girls got out of out of school. I think they had like 8 head, 9 head. And then Bob Massey loaned us a bull at times to breed too. And that's how Suva came along. I'll save that for a little later. That's it.
You know, I was raised on a commercial cattle outfit. My granddaddy was a good breeder. And we had a lot of Brahmin influenced cattle, and if a cow died or something, he would say, "Don't worry about it. She got enough Brahmin blood, he'll steal enough milk." So Mr. Ed Gudgeons is, I think, the smartest Brahmin man I've ever known. I told him one day, I said, "Mr. Edgar, I think you are the best Brahmin breeder I've ever known, and you've taught me a lot, but either you or my granddaddy are crazy." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if a calf had some Brahmin blood in it, he said, don't worry about it, he'll steal enough milk." Said, "I've had a calf, a registered calf. This is 28th day that I've had to nurse that calf, and I don't know what's wrong." But it's but he was a breeder that with his cattle he could look at a baby calf and tell you exactly what it was going to be like. And I think he was probably taught me more than anybody. I know he did in the Brahmin business. But we've had a lot of good help through the years, and it's been a great life. We've had a lot of people help us. We've owed so much money I couldn't borrow another penny. And I had some individuals that loaned me some money that helped me a lot. I used to work for Bubba Sartwell's granddaddy at the Port City Stockyards, and I worked at the trailer chutes, and they had he could get on the phone and you could hear all over the stockyards what he was saying. And I had a friend that worked with me down there, and Mr. Sartwell would call me and tell me to come to the office. I asked this man, I said, "I wonder what he wants." He said, "I know what he wants." Said, "You got all these cattle down here for sale this morning, and you not be supposed to be trading on the yard, and you just can't do that." I said, "Well, people come in here after 5 o'clock and want to sell their cattle, and the stockyard is closed, and I just bought them from him, and then I sold them the next day." He'd get me up there and he said, "Sloan, you an employee of the stockyard, and you cannot buy and sell cattle." Said, "You're not bonded, you work for the stockyard, and you just got to quit." I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Starlight." He said, "Well, when are you going to start?" I said, "I might start today." But I've had a lot of help through the years, and it's been a good life. I know when we bought Suva from Max and Shirley Watts, Clyde Goudeau had told Jim about this bull. He hadn't seen it, but he'd been hearing about him. We all wanted to get him a little bigger. So we made a deal with Max to buy that bull, and I was trying to get him down a little, but he didn't want to come down. And he said, "If y'all will buy this bull before the show's over with, I'll sell him for," I don't know, it was a lot of money. We didn't have that much money. And I said, "We'll take him. How quick you have your money?" He said, "I need it before I came to Dallas." So people like Max Watts helped us a lot. And we sold an interest in Suva. Well, first when I wrote him that check, I had to call a Ford dealership man in Houston that owned Rockets, and he was wanting a bull. And I told him, I said, "We've got a bull that I think you could, and the only reason I want to sell him because I don't have the money to pay for him." And he bought that bull from us, and then when he had a dispersal the next year, he put that bull in the sale, and Johnny Jefcoat's group on him. What did he cost, Johnny?
Quarter interest, $198,000.
Yeah,
Real money.
real. And he bought that book for $198,000. Johnny's group did, and that sure helped us a lot. And so anyway, when this man sold the rockets, they asked him what was he going to do, and he said, "Well, we still make investments." And he called me and he said, "Sloan," he said, "if you find another one of those Suva deals, you call me because I got the money." That was his name was Charlie Thomas. But we've had a lot of help during the years, and we've made some good deals. We've made some bad deals. I know Mr. Marone, when he had 257, he wanted to sell him, and I didn't have $500 to my name, and I said, "Mr. Marone, how quick you gotta have your money?" He said, "I want 50,000 for him, and you pay me when you get ready." I said, "He sold." So, but anyway, there's people like that have helped up a lot that we couldn't have got it done without them. And another thing about this man coming here, he was talking about it. We were down in that country. I don't know whether you remember, we were Shreveport, and we were rooming together. And you was up 2 hours before day, and I said, "Lee, what are you doing walking around?" He said, "Mr. Sloan," he said, "I love you to death, but said, you got to get you another room." Said, when you get to snoring, you call the hogs." He said, "You whistle, and I just can't stand it." But anyway, thank you very much.
Tell you what, if you had any of your cards, start maybe kind of passing them to the end. We'll get a few of those picked up. May not be able to cover everybody's cards, but now let's just tell a few short, funny stories. Now, Johnny, you might could tell the time we were in Columbia, and we were going to sneak out of that party, and Frank Connell went in front of us. You know, he's 6'5", and started humping over leaving there, and you started calling him El Sneako. And then, Steamer, you could tell the story about you and I, or you smuggling diamonds out of South Africa for me. But you and I wasn't going to take a hit because we got Carlos Guerra to bring them out of the country. He was the one going to the deal. Clyde, you hadn't told a story about Gilbert Tucker and A. Duda and Sons, and I'd love to hear those old stories of A. Duda and Sons. And as we go through, and Shirley, you don't know this, but Max and I pulled up to the house one time real late. And Max parked. Of course, I was driving, you know. If Max could get a driver, that's what he wanted. So we pull up there, and he looks over at me and says, "Pritchard, why don't we just sleep in the car?" I said, "Max, you don't want to wake up Shirley, do you?" He said, "No, I don't." So anyway, we went in, and Max could snore too. And then Sloan, you remember the time we get into that taxi in Little Rock, Arkansas? Beautiful night. We were going to the hotel, and I rolled the windows down, and I was looking outside, all the stars, and just a beautiful night. But our taxi driver had his windshield wipers on. From the time we left the airport, the windshield wipers were on. And I finally looked over at Sloan and said, and he looked at me and said, "Pritchard, he's tripping." Okay, short story. Just a treat. When we were in, you tell anyone you want to.
I'll tell you a story about Clyde and me and Dr. Woods. We go to Columbia. Now, Dr. Woods has never been out of Waynesboro, Mississippi. So we get on the plane, we're flying to Columbia. He's got this bag. And I said, "Doc, what you got in this bag?" He said, "I've got in this bag every cure known to man." I said, "Well, that's great." So before we go down there, we get a suite. We each got our room. And sure enough, Dr. Woods hadn't been out of the country. His antibodies weren't built up very good, and he gets sick. So we had a living room and 3 bedrooms. And he started walking by and going to the bathroom in his pajamas. Then he started going by and walking to the bathroom with his pajama top. And he told me, he said, if I ever get back to Waynesboro, Mississippi, I will never leave again.
I'm just trying to think of one that's clean that I could tell. And I hate to do this, but it's going to be on Max, I guess. Everybody loved Max. Everybody had a story with Max. Max bought a 57 Mercury red and white. Did not tell Shirley. Had put it in the brother-in-law's name and drove it to Dallas. He said, Steamer, nobody else will ride with me. Would you ride with me? And I loved the 57 red and white Mercury. You know, that was a pimp car. I mean, you were top notch. So we go downtown to the meeting at the hotel downtown in Dallas.
Ben Carpenter had that.
Yeah.
Southland building.
And so we go in there and he pulls up there and we go to the meetings and we come out and I said, well, Max, I guess we better go. And so he gets in there and that 57 Mercury, he hadn't had it tuned up real well. And he had to stomp it to get the gas to flowing to move. Well, he stomped it and when he did, the first thing we hit was a brand new Mercedes beside us. And he said, what am I going to do? And I said, we're going to get the hell out of here. And that was one. And then the 50, and he never told Shirley, I don't know, that he bought the car. And then we went to, so we had to go, he was being sued by somebody from Arkansas in the Kia business. He said, Steamer, will you be my attorney? Sure, Max, whatever you need, what you want me to do. Put on some clean clothes and get your briefcase and come up here. Now, we went into the courthouse. Is there a little town up there called DeKalb or something like that? Or the county seat. All right. So we go in there and he said, now you don't say a word. You sit there with that briefcase. So that's what I did. But on the way up there, we cut through a little town. And as we're going down through the town, I grabbed the front of the car and I said, Max, watch it, watch it, watch it. And he looks and he don't see nothing. Watch it, Max, watch it. Somebody's show pig was coming up out of the gully. He rolled that show pig for an hour down the car, underneath that car. He said, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to get the hell out of here. So that's what we did. But another good story on Emily. Do y'all want me to tell one more? Go ahead, I'm going to tell one. Okay, you think about something. Joe and Emily Dow and Henry Clay, in my opinion, were the greatest red Brahmin breeders in the world. And any time that I could hear whatever from them, fine. And Henry Clay and Emily would tell stories on each other. The only thing between them was a barbed wire fence, but it rattled because of the conversations. Well, she told me, what's her mother's, her mother's name? No, Miss
Arnold
Baker. So anyway, she says, I can't talk like she talks, and she says, me and Henry Clay, there was a norther coming in or a hurricane or something. And Mother told us to get the cows up before the weather got bad. We forgot it. The norther come in and it got cold and we got cold. We got the cows up and got cold and went in and didn't know what we were going to do. She said, we were cold, we was little kids. And she said, remember that Mother always had on the ice box, there was something on top of the ice box, and she said every time she took a swallow of it, it made her feel warm all over. And she said we were flat drunk by the time that she got home. But anyway, I hope Emily won't get mad at me for telling her.
I'm going to tell one about Emily when I worked for A. Doodle Sons. Her and Joe come down a little old horse trailer. And I had a bull I showed in Dallas that year, was reserve junior champion. They wanted to use that bull. But anyway, they come down the little old trailer, Joe and Emily. And they picked the bull out and looked at him and they wanted to take him back in that little horse trailer. Well, we did. But anyway, Mr. Ferdinand and Mr. Tucker went to Emily's place and picked out a bull that I actually in for trade of the 455 bull. Well, anyway, Emily traded a bull with him, and me and Dick Treaton, the fellow hauled all the Goudeau cattle, and I went with him, and we loaded the cattle out at Mercedes down there, and come back by to pick up the bull. Well, they run the bull in the pen, and somebody says, was they looking at Emily, or was they looking at the bull? And I said, they must have been looking at Emily, because the bull wasn't good enough to put on the trailer. But anyway, we bought the bull back. We had to breed him 3 generations to get some new blood. But Emily took me across the pasture in that Cadillac. And Betty was with me when I went down there. And she says, Clyde, she says, now we get killed, Betty and Joe will have all them pipelines out there. She says, we're going to be dead. I said, yes, we are. And actually she said, I would be kind that Cadillac across them pastures. But anyway, I brought the bull back to the ranch in Goudeau's, and the bull looked like he had long ears, long legs, no meat, no thickness, but we bred them cows. With the 3rd generation, we had a good set. But actually, Emily traded out for that bull, was a whale of a bull. And Emperata went back to all them old Emperata cattle. But that's a story I could tell. But the Goudeau ranch I worked for, there was 60,000 acres there. I worked up from the herdsman to breeding all the cattle. And that's why I learned a lot about cattle. There was Hudgens bulls there was Sockwell bulls there. There's bulls from Mr. Henry Clay Cooks, a bull named Sewell, that produced a national champion cow that went to Africa for 5,000. That was back in the 50s, 1958. But anyway, that's why I learned a lot from, and I learned a lot about the horse and Mr. Tucker and Mr. Ferdinand, the Goudeau's. Was 5 generations of them Goudeau's there. But anyway, I learned a lot there with him.
I'm going to have to tell something on Lee Pritchard. Lee loved dill pickles, homemade dill pickles. And at that time, I was doing a lot of canning. And anytime he come quite often, in fact, I'd send a jar of pickles home with him. Well, I hear, I don't know, it was several weeks later that he'd had a wreck. He'd messed up the car, not a bad wreck, but yet he boogered up his car. Come to find out, the jar of pickles was in the back floorboard, and Lee was going down the road, reaching around trying to get the jar of pickles out of the back road and run over mailboxes and I think cupboard. Another one on Lee, he'd come and he spent the night with us, and I got up and gone deer hunting the next morning. Well, I had kind of laid stuff out for breakfast because Lee said he'd cook. So, but had a deal that you'd take an egg, had a little pinpoint, a little pin in it, and he just stuck this egg down over it and kind of turned it around, and it made a little pinhole. But it also whipped that egg on the inside to where, anyway, I had fixed these eggs that way. Max tells me that Lee's over there and he cracks these eggs in the bowl and he goes and he smells, cracks another one, and he never did say anything to Max, but the whole time he was cooking it on, he was a smelling of them. But no, I have to say a little bit about where Sue has come along in our program. Wendell Trump was with the association at the time, and the girls had these, I don't think they had but 4 head when Ursula came along, and Bob Massey had drawn up a bull to breed those 4 head to. And anyway, Ursula was one of them that was born out of this bull. Bobby sent us this bull. He says, he's a good bull. He says, if he stays around here, I'll end up selling him. And he said, I'd really like to keep him. If I send him off up there, he won't get sold. So that's how Suva came about. Well, about 4 days after he was born, Max calls Wendell and says, I got him. And Wendell said, you got what? He says, I got the bull. Well, Max was so proud over the bull and everything, and he did brag on him, and was kind of finally, whenever Bull got on up a year old, or maybe a little older, he said, he said, if this bull don't do something, he said, I'm just going to go hide in the hole. But he just knew that he had the bull, and sure enough, he did. And that's kind of the story on how Suva come along. So that's all I've got to say.
You know, the scariest I've ever been in my life was in El Salvador. And they were having the Brahmin show there, and that's when the samosas were in power. And I noticed that they'd have before they would go into a place, they'd have a car in front of them and a car behind them. And I said, what are those cars doing? And they said, well, I mean, they could go to a restaurant and they'd send somebody in and said, those are chase cars, and they won't let anybody get between them and the samosas. So anyway, that night, I got ready to go to bed, and there was a hotel down there that had 5 stories, and I was on the 4th floor. So I went going up to my room, and I punched supposed to have been a 4, but I punched a 5, and that was Samosa's hotel. When I walked out of the elevator, there was a machine gun on this side of my face and another one right in my neck. And this fella could speak a little English. He said, I think you in the wrong. You were right in the wrong floor. I said, I know I'm in the wrong floor. And I backed up in that elevator, and I was shaking so bad I had to hold my arm to try to punch that number 4. And I mean, it was going like this. Finally, I punched and got out. And I tell you what, that was an experience for me. That's one of the, another thing, Shirley was talking about it, when we had 417. Oh, beautiful. I was thinking, I can't think talking. So anyway, we wanted to show this heifer, and Brandy was a good showman, and she took 417 and showed her and went everywhere with her. And the person said, I can Max and them get those cattle in such good shape so quick. Said, we remember when Brandy first brought this heifer out, and I said, well, a lot of people have one nurse cow. Max has probably got 4. And I said, she was good. So anyway, when Rachel got out of A&M and was going in business, she wanted me to help her with a financial statement. She said, do you know anything about fixing a financial statement? I said, I can doctor it up as good as anybody. So she had we were going through her assets and stuff, and she had $200,000 in a CD. And I said, Rachel, well, you were the first Williams I ever knew that had a CD. I said, where'd you get this CD from? She said, when you gave me 417? 617. She said, every time I'd sell something, I'd put it in a CD, and I never took a penny out. And I said, well, you don't need to be fixing out a financial statement, just turn that in and you can buy that building. She said, no, I've never spent a penny of it. But Brandy was really a good showman, one of the best, still is. So I could tell all kind of windies all night, but Molly said, quit telling those little windies. Ain't nobody think they're funny but you.
We've had a question turned in here, and it's an excellent question. And we'll just let anyone that wants to address the question. But is there a place for older genetics before 1990 in today's Brahmin cattle? Is there a place for older genetics in today's Brahmin cattle? Excellent question. Who wants to?
Being over the years of learning about different bloodlines, different breeds, Hudgens, and all the way through, some of that old breeding, we need to go back a little bit. Those easy keepers and calipers. I had a set of cows that I bred at Doodles and I bought for $1,200 a piece. Opal, Miss Dolly, cows are in the restaurant now. Opal was #1 cow, and it was an old, and I went to W.H. Stewart and bought a bull good back to the Emperata Esto Old 91. And those cattle was from out of Florida, was raised on grass. It wasn't show cattle, it was all raised on grass. And I bred those cattle, and that's why I got my top cattle from, was some old breeders that I bred back then when I was with Doodles. Went back to Hudgens, Sarkwell, some of them Sarkwell bulls I bred at Doodles. We was breeding about 3 or 4 bulls from Sarkwells, them old Emperata bulls. And you cross them Emperatas with them old Florida cattle or them old Hudgens cattle down in that part of the country, you really could go places with them. And I think the old, some of them old breeders, you can go back and breed to some cattle you got today. They're easy kept on grass, not on feed. And that's what I like about some of them old breeds. Thank you.
Anyone else want to address that question? Excellent question.
I'm a firm believer that in the old genetics, everything, the V8, all the modern stuff is bred from Rex A. Manso 1/5. That is old. And if you bring it up now, it's not modern. But if you're a breeder and you can make it work sometime, you've got something, because with the problems we have in the world now, importing genetics is a big problem, and it's a big political problem. So if you can make something that'll work, it's something worth trying. And but what was it somebody said? Bob told you or told us that if he could get 1 out of 20 out of a flush that was good, he was happy. That's if you get that 1 out of 20, it would. So anyway, it's experiment, it's a gamble, and it's a gamble, but in the business we're in, we gamble. Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to address the question on?
About 35 years ago, I was in Guatemala, and Sugar had sold a bull 402/6 or whatever. Lox Crowder 78. Now, I'm talking about old genetics. His father was Loxagon male, born in 1961. His mother was a daughter of Alba Crowder 37, born in 1945. Now, I was 2 years old in 1945. So I wanted that bull. And he was a good bull. He was at the time the highest priced sugar bull ever sold. And he was getting real old. So I had a real good friend in Guatemala, Peter Procharsky. And I told Peter, I said, Peter, see if you could make a deal. Milton Molina owned him. He was a big cotton farmer. So we made a deal. I bought the bull, brought him through Mexico, kind of got hung up at Rolf Abrahamson's for an extended period of time. I assume he was getting semen. And then I got him, I flew down there, in fact, and said, look, you're going to have that bull at the border in 2 days, or I'm having somebody else pick him up. But anyway, we got him in the country. I never got a calf. Now, at this point, I got a lot of money in this bull. So I'm doing this kind of new project I'm working on, where I'm working on IMF and tenderness and marbling. And so I called Sarah down at Transoa, and I asked her, I said, Sarah, I want to send some semen up there, and it's terrible semen, but I want to try it. So she gets it, she called me, she said, Johnny, this is terrible semen. I said, I told you it was terrible semen when I sent it to you. But anyway, we got 2 embryos. So we were doing the cows again in 2 weeks. So I said, use 1 straw. I want to do all 6 cows. If we get embryos out of each cow, I want to plant 1 of each of the pieces of genetics and freeze the rest. Well, I got 6 pregnancies, I got 6 calves and 54 embryos out of that bull. Now this is after 30 years, so I'm kind of excited. Then we get the calves, and we get some good calves. And I produced a bull out of that. It's a 6'11" IMF. And I produced a daughter that's a 5'87" IMF. So that's about as old a genetics as probably around. So they had things in those cattle that we never even dreamed about testing for, that we can test for today. So if you try some of this kind of genetics, some of this older genetics, and get some calves and you test them, you might be surprised the things you get out of it. Now, I'm not saying these are show cattle, but this bull I bred to a 6 IMF, bought from New Mexico State, and I've got a 4-month-old calf, heifer calf. But now in 8 months, we can do the scan to see if we made any progress. You know genetics, it could be a 2, it could be a 12. But you gotta try this stuff if you wanna go in an area that we haven't really pursued very hard in the past. Thank you.
You know, excuse me. We've had some cows that, from old cattle, when Luann's keeping the books, she called them my generic cows. But that's, that one heifer that Randy showed was out of one of those generic cows. And, we've got, 5 or 6 of the top cows that we've had came from small breeders, but they were good. I've just, when I would go to some sales, if I saw one that I liked, I'd buy her if I could afford it. And now we breed to some of those old bulls and get some outstanding calves. So I think that, well, I'm just always ready to try something new. I know first time we sent cattle to, when they started doing this embryo, Jim called me one day and he said this vet up at Transoa, where was Transoa from? Long way from here. But anyway, he said, Daddy, he said, they've got, how many embryos do you want? I said, I want all they can produce. He said, well, they tell me you owe 128,000 now. I said, tell them let's quit breeding. I don't want any more of these summer calves. But we bred some cattle back to that old breeding that's really paid off for us. But anyway, we always trying something new, and that's where we don't have any money.
I remember something that Jim Williams always said. We always felt like if we had a cow that had a super good calf out of a certain bull, breed her back that way the next year. Well, Jim's theory was breed her to a different bull. If she works to several different bulls, you've got you a heck of a cow. So I remember that, but still, you know, when you've got a really good calf on the ground, it's sure hard to gamble and breed her to something different, and just you're hoping that you get something that's just as good as the one she had at her side at that time. But that's something I always remember. And as far as using your older genetics, you don't know until you try it. That's the way I look at it. So.
you, Shirley. That's just about the time it's going to wrap us up, and I know it's been a real enjoyable afternoon, and I wish we would have had more time because, you know, Sloan, you didn't mention anything about the famous V61. See, I can remember all those stories rooming with you, and I can remember V61.
Yeah, he was, I hauled him 5 years and never got him rid when I was in rodeo business. And, the people in the IRA, International Rodeo Association, they just wouldn't get on him.
So I sold him to Billy Minnick. Billy Minnick had just purchased Harry Knight's rodeo stock, and I furnished Harry Knight with 90% of his bulls for all of his rodeos. And he took that bull to the finals and in the PBRA, and he was bucking bull of the year that year. And when I bought him from Rudy Vela, he was a little old calf. He wouldn't weigh 800 pounds, and I called Rudy, and I traded him a registered Brahman bull for this calf. And he put him out, and I went up there and I said, whose bull is this? They said, a fella named Vela down in the valley bought him to you. And I called Rudy, I said, Rudy, this thing won't weigh 700 pounds. He said, he's bad. He's better than any bull you ever owned. I said, well, I'm gonna try him. And he was, we never got him ridden, and they bucked him like, I don't know how many years before they got him ridden, but he was but I had to sell that rodeo stock to buy those VA cows. And but that's just the way I operate.
Thank you. Let's give our legends a big hand, and if you would, you know, it doesn't have to stop here. We're fixing to just cross the street, and the sale activities, and you know, it'd be just an excellent opportunity to talk one-on-one with a Brahmin legend. Appreciate your attendance.